Welcome to Joe's Recaps. In this video, we are going to comment a movie called Gulliver's Travels. Lemuel Gulliver is a middle-aged man. He wakes up in his apartment and goes on with his morning routine. He talks to his superhero toys on a shelf and sings in the shower. Gulliver works in the mailroom of a newspaper company. One day, he meets a new employee named Dan. Gulliver is Dan's boss in the department. As they deliver their mail for the day, they come across Gulliver's longtime crush. Her name is Darcy Silverman, and she is a journalist. He has been in love with her for years, but he has never confessed. Later that day, Dan brings a notice that says he has been promoted to head of the mail department on his first day. Gulliver has been working in the department for 10 years. Dan claims that Gulliver is scared to talk and will never progress in life. A sad Gulliver is walking out of the office, and he notices Darcy working. He gathers up courage and goes to her room to ask her out. However, he gets nervous, so he picks up a random paper from her desk and heads out. Darcy asks him if he wants to apply for a travel writing assignment. A nervous Gulliver accepts. Now, he has to submit a travel article the following day. At home, he copies and pastes several articles from the internet. The following day at work, he submits it to Darcy. She is impressed by his writing skills and provides him with a new task. She wants him to travel to the Bermuda Triangle and write an article about the ships mysteriously disappearing there. To impress her, Gulliver accepts. Darcy arranges a contact and a boat for him.
For more videos like this, subscribe and click the notification bell.
Then Gulliver flies to Bermuda the next day. There, he is picked up by a man. He takes Gulliver to a rented boat and shows him how to use it. The journey is pretty simple as the boat is automated. Gulliver finally sails for the Bermuda Triangle alone in the boat. For the first few hours, he enjoys himself by reading how to build a robot magazines and drinking Coke. He soon falls asleep. Sometime later, he wakes up and sees a massive wave in front of him. A sea storm hits, and he quickly puts a life jacket on. The boat shakes vigorously in the water. Gulliver turns around and sees an enormous sea tornado coming his way. With his boat, Gulliver is sucked on top of the tornado. Then everything goes black. When Gulliver wakes up, he cannot move his body. He looks down and is surprised to see some tiny men standing on top of his chest. Their leader introduces himself as the Commander Edward of the Lilliput. The camera zooms out and shows us a crowd of tiny people. He is pinned to the ground with tiny ropes and wood. Commander Edward calls Gulliver a beast. A confused Gulliver yells in fear and gets up easily. At first, he thinks this is a dream. He tries closing his eyes. Edward orders his soldiers to bring him down. They attach their hooks to Gulliver's pants and make him fall unconscious. When he wakes up, Gulliver finds himself tied to a cart. They pull him into the kingdom of Lilliput. The tiny civilians come out of their houses to get a look at the beast. He is pulled into the royal palace and presented to the king of Lilliput, King Theodore. The king's daughter, Princess Mary, pities Gulliver, and she asks Edward if the restraints are necessary. Edward claims that Gulliver is a spy from their enemy kingdom, Bilofutia. Gulliver finally speaks and asks where he is. King Theodore's secretary tells him that he is in Lilliput, the greatest nation in the world. Gulliver thinks this is a prank and asks the non-existent cameramans to show themselves. In the following scene, we see Gulliver imprisoned inside a cave. He meets a prisoner named Horatio. He was sentenced to life by Edward for trying to court Princess Mary. Then Edward comes and listens to them. Gulliver refers to him as lame ass. When an angry Edward threatens to imprison him for life, Gulliver claims lame ass means someone who is brave. Happy with the answer, Edward takes both the prisoners to a field to plow it with the help of Gulliver's strength. He restrains Gulliver with a machine. Just then, 2 rings of a bell are heard from the palace. It indicates that Bilofutia has attacked. They are trying to kidnap Princess Mary and have started a fire at the palace. Edward quickly runs to the palace and orders everyone not to save the princess. He wants to be the one to save her, but Horatio asks Gulliver to save her because Edward can't reach her on time. Gulliver easily takes the Bilofutian soldiers down and saves the princess. But the king and his secretary are stuck in the fire. Gulliver, in a hurry, urinates on the building. When he stops the fire and saves King Theodore, everyone claps for him. The king removes him and Horatio from imprisonment and thanks Gulliver for his bravery. He also invites everyone for a feast at night to celebrate. Edward is furious to see someone else being praised for his bravery. At the feast, the king asks Gulliver where he is from. Gulliver answers he is from Manhattan. The people assume that Gulliver was the king of Manhattan, as he is the bravest one there. Gulliver feels like a hero for the first time in his life, so he fabricates the story and claims he was known as King the Awesome. Everyone believes him, except Edward. The following day, They build a massive home for Gulliver with all the facilities he couldn't get when he was in New York. Gulliver also makes them build a theater for everyone there. Then, he shows them a drama of the sinking Titanic, claiming it to be the story of his life. Everyone is amazed by the tragic life that he has had. Edward inquires how he was saved after drowning. Gulliver tells that he was resuscitated. Later, Horatio asks Gulliver to help him impress Princess Mary, and Gulliver agrees. They go to the palace, and Horatio approaches the princess. A hidden Gulliver recites the lyrics of a famous song, and makes Horatio repeat it. By the end of it, the princess starts to fall for Horatio, but she is called by Edward, who has come to court her. They have been destined to get married as Edward is the bravest of the kingdom. Princess Mary isn't fond of Edward, but she cannot get rid of him. Somewhere else, the search party finds the boat. Gulliver goes there and finds his phone is still working. He has 12 voice messages from Darcy. She is furious about Gulliver's plagiarized article. She has to now sail for the Bermuda Triangle research herself. Gulliver now doesn't want to go back to New York and face her, so he decides to stay in Lilliput permanently. Edward is not happy about the decision, and he tells the king he is suspicious of Gulliver. The king claims that he trusts Gulliver and dismisses Edward. Because of his stay, the king gives Gulliver the title of the new general, and he demotes Edward to vice general. A jealous Edward turns Lilliput's defense system off. This makes easier for their enemies Bilifutia to attack. Bilifutian soldiers and their king see this and plan to attack Lilliput immediately. They approach the kingdom through waters and launch cannonballs toward Lilliput. Being the general, Gulliver is responsible to stop them. He nervously steps into the water, but he doesn't want to fight. So he starts to splash it around, but the soldiers fire at him. The cannonballs do not work on Gulliver, who is massive compared to them. Eventually, he defeats them and becomes the savior of Lilliput. The people from Lilliput fulfill all of Gulliver's wishes. They even build a model of Times Square so he would feel at home. They change their clothing to match that of Gulliver's. Soldiers cut his hair and give him massages. One night, Edward barges into the princess's chamber. He claims that it is his right to come in any time because he courts the princess. The princess finally reveals that she doesn't love him and doesn't want him to court her anymore. An angered Edward leaves for Bilifutia to ask for help from their king. Edward's men have found the building a robot book on the boat. The king agrees to help him build a robot using the book. Some days later, Gulliver hears the bells of the palace ring, suggesting an invasion. He gets ready to battle tiny people, but he is surprised when a huge robot being operated by Edward stands in front of him. Edward challenges him for a duel. Gulliver has no way out but to accept. He tries to push the robot, but it is way stronger than him. It picks Gulliver up with his pants and makes him accept the defeat. Gulliver also confesses that everything he said about him being the king is a lie. The king and the princess are surprised to have been betrayed by him. Edward sends Gulliver to a forbidden place called the Island, where we dare not go, as a punishment. When Gulliver is left there, he is picked up by a giant little girl. Turns out the island is the home of giants. The girl thinks Gulliver is a toy and keeps him in her Barbie house, dressing him in girly pink clothes. Meanwhile, back in Lilliput, Darcy's body washes up on the shore. Gulliver had told everyone that Darcy is his princess back home, so Edward recognizes her and imprisons her. She meets King Theodore and his queen in prison, who have been captured after Gulliver's defeat. Horatio sees this and decides to travel to the island to get Gulliver back. He is minuscule on the island and manages to reach Gulliver safely. The little girl's dollhouse also has a skeleton of a dead pilot. Gulliver uses the parachute to escape and fly back to Lilliput. He first goes to meet Darcy in the prison and confesses that he has a crush on her. She forgives him for plagiarizing the article and seems to be opening up to him. Gulliver has decided to challenge Edward for a duel. He doesn't want to prove his bravery anymore, but he wants to help Lilliput. The following day, the two stand before each other ready to battle. Gulliver wants Edward to give the kingdom back to King Theodore if he wins, but if he loses, Edward will destroy the kingdom. The two fights, and Edward overpowers him within seconds. Horatio runs to help him and manages to get inside the robot. He defeats Edward from inside, eventually depowering the robot. After that, Gulliver easily manages to defeat it, and the crowd erupts and cheers. Even Darcy celebrates the win. Because of Horatio's bravery, he is provided permission to court Princess Mary. The two finally kiss, but just then, Edward, who has reached the point of insanity, takes the princess hostage. But the princess, finally having enough of Edward, beats the traitor up in frustration. Darcy then kisses Gulliver for the first time. The Bilifusian king and Theodore are about to initiate the war again, but Gulliver stops them. He successfully helps to make peace between the rival island nations. and finally, he and Darcy return to New York City on their repaired ship. A few weeks later, Gulliver has left the mailroom job and is a travel writer now. Also, they are in a happy relationship. Gulliver has just completed a travel assignment, and the movie ends as the two walk out of Darcy's office while holding hands. For more videos like this, subscribe and click the notification bell, and don't forget to hit the like button. Also, you can check our other videos. Enjoy and take care.